Welcome to the Personal Injury Marketing Minute, where we quickly cover the hot topics in the legal marketing world. I'm your host, Lindsay Busfield. We all want to grow. That is why we invest in marketing, join mastermind groups, attend conferences like PILMMA, listen to podcasts, and learn as much as we can about how to bring in new clients to the door. But as we grow, it is important to understand some of the key steps to scaling your law firm so that the growth is sustainable long term. Greg and Jany Ward from the Ward Law Group with locations in Miami and New York join us today to discuss their upcoming PILMMA presentation on key steps in scaling your law firm. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourselves and about your practice.
So I'm Jany Martínez-Ward, my husband, Greg Ward. He is the CEO. I am the Chief Marketing Officer, and together we founded the Ward Law Group. Greg and I started in a foldable plastic table, my laptop from law school, and my cell phone, and we were working around the clock, 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to like midnight, because when you start a new business, it's nonstop with all the things you have to do. And then from him and I, 12 years later, we have 200 employees. We have offices in Miami, offices in New York, and we are thriving. We specialize only in Spanish people. So I am from Cuba. I was born in Cuba. I came when I was 14 years old, crossing the border. And I always knew that I wanted to help my community, which is Spanish-speaking people. And till today, that's what we do.
Well, it's a great introduction to you guys and what you do, and clearly shows a little bit about what you guys are passionate about and why you wanted to grow and help your community, because that's what it's all about. And starting from that little folding table to scaling to a 200 employee firm is no small feat. And it requires a lot of effort and a lot of resources to be able to do that. And I think many of the listeners that we have today, who are all personal injury attorneys, they could relate, because they started at, fresh out of law school, not necessarily knowing what they were going to do. Many founded their own firms and have these ambitions to grow and scale. And at PILMMA, we're going to meet people who are all across the board in terms of that journey, but we are all there with the mindset: we want to grow, we want to scale. But
I love it because I share our story and our testimony so other people can learn and they feel that they can do it themselves. Greg always talks about how we started with $460,000 in debt between him and I. I had a lot of student loans. He had debt from the past. So from $460,000 to making millions of money today, it's really hard to feel that we got here together.
that's the dream, and that's such a great story. I love that.
Yeah, I remember what it was like. I was sleeping on a couch, and I told my wife when we started the firm, I said, I can't afford to pay you anything, but I know we can do something special together. I can only give you gas money, and that was the job offer that she jumped on as a new law graduate. And I guess she had bad judgment, or maybe good judgment. She could see what was going to happen, but it ended up working out for the best. But I want to talk for a second. You mentioned, and you can tell my wife is the charming, and she's the marketing officer, and everybody loves her. I'm the tough medicine guy, and hopefully I'm charming too, but I'll also be more direct. And that is, a lot of people talk about wanting to grow. And growth is required in this business. You're either going to grow or you're going to die, one or the other. There's no third direction. And one of the things that lawyers are really bad at, if you want to come to a seminar, I'm going to tell you everything we do wrong, right? Because I know all the stuff I did wrong, and it's all from a place of love, but I made a lot of mistakes. And one of the things people will say, I want to grow, but are you prepared to make the sacrifices and the choices and the personal growth you need to be able to grow? Because the transition, I did not realize what a tremendous growth was required to be able to grow an organization from the two of us to having over 200 employees. And we service several thousand. We've serviced 28,000 clients in the last 10 years. We'll probably hit over 5,000 clients this year. To get from where we were to where we are, there's a tremendous mindset shift and a lot of growth and a lot of painful surgeries that you have to go through, and scars you have to earn to get there. And a lot of people say they want to grow, but that growth is, there's no comfort in the growth zone and there's no growth in the comfort zone. And you got to be aware of that coming in. And that's a real commitment if you do want to grow. Because a lot of people everyone says they want to grow, but if you really want to grow, there's gonna be a lot of sacrifice and a lot of blood. But I can tell you, it's totally worth it. Where I am now is just so much better than where I was 15 years ago.
It's absolutely worth it. And I just interviewed Sterling Hawkins, the keynote speaker for PILMMA. And one of the big things that he talked about was that discomfort and being okay with being uncomfortable, and how that discomfort leads to phenomenal growth, which you guys, can, bring testament to. And a lot of the law firms that are coming to PILMMA have been established for years. They've been around for, 15, 20 years. And some of them are brand new and kind of have that ambition to scale. But part of it is knowing when the right time is. And one of the questions I have for you is, how do you know when to scale your firm? How do you know, does that need to be constantly happening, or are there flags that you need to be looking for that says we're starting to die and we need to start going the other direction?
The time to scale, I can always tell you the right time to scale was yesterday. If you're thinking about it, it's already too late, right? You need to be always thinking about, and I say scale. Scaling is different than growing, and we'll get into some of those distinctions when we have our presentation in PILMMA. But the truth is, as I say, there's no third direction. You're either growing or dying. I can say that there are normal break points in firm growth where people will get comfortable and they'll plateau out. And I talk about this in our PILMMA presentation. We talk about it. 5 employees up to $1 million in revenue, 15 employees, $5 million in revenue. And we have a breakdown. And, these people who study business study this to say there's natural break points for things. And look, you can have a 15-person firm and do really well profitably. But we made a conscious decision at some point that says, when I had to stop being the total trial lawyer and grow the business, I said, I have to let go of this piece of the practice and do what I do best, which is run a business and make a personal transition from that. That's what got us over the 15-person hump. And as I say, there are some break points, but scaling is a decision, and it does take a lot of discipline. I think everyone could probably scale some more. But look, if you're ending your career, probably not the right time to scale. But for anyone else, especially if you're starting out, you really should be scaling. I don't believe in timing the market. I don't believe in any of that stuff. If you're providing a great service and you have the right spiritual backing and you're right in your faith and you're providing a good service, yesterday was a time to scale. You have anything to add to that? I'm sure you do.
For me, scaling is about making sure you have processes. I feel like at the beginning, Greg and I, we would wear many hats. We were wearing paralegal, admin. He was the bookkeeper, cutting the checks. I was the client support, receptionist, intake case manager, and negotiator. So when you realize that you're wearing too many hats, it's probably time to put in a process to make sure you're scaling efficiently. And that's what we realized. We're like, okay, when you feel like you're running in 1,000 directions, what can you put in place? What system, what process to make sure that you're delegating to the best person rather than you doing multiple hats? Also, marketing, I think it's important to scale, because before we went from Miami to New York, did we have a proof of concept where people are hiring us? Could I expand to another geographic marker? Was there an area of need for my type of clients? All those decisions have to be made. But I think that with the right processes and the right marketing, anybody's able to scale.
And we'll definitely get into this in our presentation if you're at PILMMA in Denver. We talk about the different break points and the different things that you need to be doing at those break points, because when you're up to 5 employees, it's you running the whole show and everyone's reporting to you. You've got no processes, you've got no checklists. And then as you get into 5 to 15 employees, you need to have checklists. And then over 15 employees, you need to have systems and processes in place. And who the key hires are at each step of your development. Those are all, we learned this by trial and error. We were not in PILMMA when we first started out. PILMMA is a great organization. We didn't join PILMMA until we joined the 8-figure group when we were over 10 million in revenue. And that really helped us grow that next hump. But early on, you just don't know who to hire first and how to hire. And gosh, all of that stuff is trial and error. It was an expensive education, which we paid for. And, they can't take it away now. So
Well, lawyers so often approach the art of law as lawyers and not necessarily as business people. So while they might know how to try a case really well, they don't necessarily know how to scale a business or do the marketing. And you don't have to. And some lawyers just need to hire in the right minds. Some need to talk to other people and learn, what are the steps and processes in order to make a plan to put into place so that they can grow and scale efficiently. And I think that that is one of the things that PILMMA is great for, so that you can talk to people and learn from their lessons, learn from their mistakes, and hopefully avoid a handful of them in the process. I want to go back to something that you had said earlier about mindset, because to grow and to scale, you're right. It's more than just growing your business. It's growing as a person and having the right mindset in place so that you can put all these pieces together and not lose your sanity. So, what mindset shifts are necessary as you prepare to continue and grow and scale your law firm?
I'll let my wife answer that, except I will tell you in my presentation, I actually have the exact mindset shifts you need to make at each step of the game. So come to PILMMA in Denver. I got to give the sales. So now
I
that's
don't want to step on too many toes. So,
yeah. I mean, literally, I'm looking at my presentation. It says mindset, and step one, the founder equals the doer, right? That's step one. Is your mindset is your founder. You're the guy who's going to do everything, or the woman who's going to do everything, and that's up to 5 employees and up to $1 million in revenue, and you're responsible for everything. So that's step one. Now I've got all the steps broken down up to 50 million in revenue, and there's about 5 or 6 steps that we have between there. So but there's a bigger mindset shift. I want to let my wife talk about this because she's the cheerleader in the firm. She's the heart of the firm. And when I get down, and I'll talk about how lawyers are. I love you, lawyers. We're all bad business people, and I'll tell you how we destroy ourselves. So we'll go ahead and.
No, for me, I feel like every time we've had to grow, I've gotten used to. Have you ever been in a roller coaster and you're gonna about to go down and you're feeling all the butterflies and you're like, don't do it, and you have this nervousness and I'm gonna fail or I'm gonna crash. At every point of our growth, I think we both have felt like that. And leaning forward to that fear of failure instead of like getting paralyzed, leaning forward to that and just going with it. Because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, there is no guarantee that you're going to grow, but you're going to have to push yourself to make those decisions instead of staying in the safety zone. So that's been the hardest thing, where there is no guarantee. You don't know if you're going to fail. You don't know if you're going to succeed, but still making the best decision to just move forward, spend the money, spend it on the marketing, spend it on hiring, that trial lawyer you need, spend it on a controller, whatever you need. Like, there's no guarantee of success, but you still have to lean in and go forward with it. So every time we're growing, I do feel the butterflies. I do feel like I'm throwing myself down a roller coaster, but that's the mindset. Where in law school, you were taught about data, logic, being safe, being cautious, taking it one a step at a time. I don't think as a business owner that really works for us.
And I'm going to talk a minute about the scars. I have a couple scars here I want to show you. They're like deep in my heart, and I joke, but I don't joke. So what happens, and God bless PILMMA, and God bless the mastermind groups that are around, particularly the positive ones. You want to look for the positive, uplifting people. I'm going to tell you what happens, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you have an entrepreneurial mindset to begin with. Everyone will tell you you're going to fail, and lawyers are going to tell you the 150 reasons why you can't do something. And I tell my staff at least once a month, everything amazing we've accomplished has been after at least one person told us there's no way you can do that. And then you figure it out. And when you figure it out, that's what being an entrepreneur is. And that's where the success comes. And the truth is, and this is where the scar is, the truth is, after you figure it out and you do it, the same people who told you you can't do it are the same people who said, we always knew you could do it. And I mean that sincerely. I've had people who've gone 180 degrees from there's no way you can do this to I always knew you could do it. And I'm like, I remember you telling me there's no way I could do it, but I have to let that go and just keep looking forward. And what happens is, and it's nice that they can at least validate your accomplishment, but at the same time, there are some people who are haters who will say, and again, this is another thing you got to deal with as you get bigger and bigger and bigger. We got a lot of haters now. I mean, we're just trying to do good for our clients. I love everybody. I want them to succeed. If you're doing bad stuff for clients, I'm not going to like you very much. But the truth is there's a lot of people out there who are like, why are they blessed, or why are they doing this? I mean, we just try and do good by the clients. Client service is our number one core value. We're always trying to get the best recovery for our clients based on the law of facts and ethics that are governing our profession. And and that apparently draws some negative energy too. So you got to get wrapped up in a group like PILMMA, where the people around there are cheering for you to be successful and uplifting you. And God bless it, you'll go into a PILMMA group and you'll be like, I'm thinking about doing this, and you'll meet somebody who says, yeah, I did it. And then they can give you the roadmap, which is what I want to do for you guys, and what she wants to do for you guys, to give you the roadmap. Because a lot of the stuff, a lot of the mistakes we made, you don't need to make those same mistakes, and we want to help you navigate around those pitfalls, landmines, whatever you want to call them.
Another mindset that we had to do is, at the beginning, we used to make this mistake to hire people that we liked, our friends, our family. It's a small business. You kind of tend to work with people that are like you and who you like. And it ended up being people just like us, same personality, same style. However, when you're growing the business, you realize that hiring the right people around you might be people that think different than you. For example, I like free flowing. I like strategizing, creation, innovation, and that's why I'm in marketing. But around me, I tend to hire people that are very structured. They're planners, they're organizers. They can get stuff done and execute really fast. And I felt like that was a mistake that we did at the beginning, where we hired people that maybe were flowy like me instead of that organizing execution. When you have a business, you have to get to know your people and put them in the right place. And I think that was a key shift of mindset. I don't have to work with a person that's just like me. I have to work with a person that complements me.
Absolutely. And I have seen that time and time again in my own professional career, where I thrive best when I have a creative pair and we are able to bounce ideas off each other and build something together. But the key part of having the right creative pair, the right creative partner, is having somebody where we balance each other. So my business partner, Len, who is not a forward-facing or not, front-facing person, so I, take on all the podcast stuff. He is somebody who has a brilliant mind for strategy. He is in the trenches, knowing all of the updates that are going on in the SEO world. He's in the forums. He knows absolutely everything there is to know about that. I don't. I know what I need to know, and I know how to make my clients succeed. But the small algorithm change that, is going to have this blip on the radar, he thrives in that, and I don't. The flip side of that is I am all spreadsheets all the time. And he's like, I've got this idea and this idea and this idea. And I'm like, well, let's organize this and then make a plan to move it forward. And so I think that, that's exactly in line with what you're saying, where you need to hire people and work with people who are going to bring different things to the table, bring the right skills to the table, so that you can serve your clients to the absolute best capacity by bringing in all of these great skill sets and having them work together.
And two things that go kind of hand in hand with that, and this is why both entrepreneurs and lawyers are not good at this. Like, it's not in our DNA to necessarily enjoy doing this. When we begin a law firm, and let's be honest and let's be transparent, everyone who's listening to this and will listen to it in the future, ask yourself, do you feel like you're the very best person who can do each function of your job? And at the very beginning of your firm, in the very beginning of your company, not even a law firm, the entrepreneurs will always say, I'm the best person for this job. We believe it sincerely. In fact, we probably wouldn't start the company if we weren't. You must drill that out of your head as quickly as humanly possible, because there are many people who are way better at most of the functions of your job than you are. And the minute you can recognize that and surrender control, as a general, like if you're doing military, if you're general, you're generally running things, but you must rely on the competency of your staff and your partners to do what they do best. And you can double check it. Like I double check my wife with marketing sometimes. She double checks me with, systems and processes and strategies sometimes. But the truth is, you just need to know enough to make sure you're not going to make a big mistake. But the truth is, you've got to let those people run and use their talents and abilities. I remember we used to drive around and sign up all the clients, and that we could only sign about 20 clients a month when we were driving. We go work all day and we go out and sign up the clients. And my wife says, I must meet with every single client. And I was like, well, they could at least come to the office and not drive around. And then we started hiring people to do intakes for us. And that's when things exploded to the next level for us. And so it's natural to believe you're the best person at this. But the people who do our intakes now are better than even than my wife. She's great at messaging and being on TV and entering into a relationship with people she hasn't met before. But the truth is, the actual sign up and the mechanics, they've been trained really well. They have all the scripts. They know what they need to say. If there's a question, they can ask us. But the truth is, they're better at it than we are. And we do that with a lot of different functions in the firm, that they're just better. Like our marketing people, I've got a team sitting behind the camera right now. You don't see, they're all way better at this than I am. In fact, the part that I did of this got messed up. They did the right part. I messed it up. You know what I'm saying? So I got to just empower them to do their job. So.
And it can be difficult to delegate that out when you are used to having a control and having the vision, and you want to make sure that things with your vision align with your overarching goals. It can be really, really hard to relinquish some of that control and say, I'm okay with this not being exactly what I thought, because maybe they have a better idea. We'll see where this goes. And it's not an easy mindset shift to make, but you're right. It's absolutely necessary in order to grow and expand beyond your own personal capabilities.
Yeah, and I think talking about hard things, one of the hardest things from scaling a business from 2 people to 200 people is letting go people that have been with you from the beginning, but your culture has changed, your mindset has changed, your business has grown, and they can adapt
Yeah.
to company that you keep scaling, because your baby company is not going to behave the same as when you're scaling to 50 to 100 people. So why don't you talk about that? Because we've been through some painful
That's the hardest part. The hardest part is letting go of your friends if you're close with them, or people in your relationship with. What
employees.
employees? Yeah, I mean employees who are friends, and you become friends with your employees, but you may be friends with them before they become employees. And I will say I'll start this by saying, you need to know a couple things. Number one, you've got to define what you believe success is for you. You've got to start with that. You should not incorporate your company until you know what success really is to you. Because if you don't have a target where you want to be, and you can change it, you can improve it, and you can modify it if you want to, but you need to have a general target about what success looks like, or else you're going to be running down every rabbit hole. And then you need to know what your core values are, what you stand for in your business. We have 7 core values, and you need your purpose, vision, and mission. And then you need to stick to that. The way you manage people is, you know what your core values are, you know what your mission, vision, and purpose are. And that's how you put that DNA into the people you hopefully hire around that, and then you put that DNA into the people, and then you use that as a quality control check of the people who are still in your business. Lots of people have systems for this, top grading or other things. The question is would I enthusiastically rehire them tomorrow? And the way you find that out is, first and foremost, are they matching your core values? And what my wife is suggesting is, those core values, the core values don't change, they're etched in stone, but how those core values walk out can change. And if you see somebody who's prioritizing their personal needs over the needs of the team or the needs of the clients, you need to take a look at that person. Or if they all of a sudden they have a questionable ethical issue, like that's one thing. Like if you lie, you will be fired on the spot. Like there's not even a chance. Richard Branson has a different philosophy about this than I do, but I'm telling you, if you lie to me about something, I'll fire you on the spot if I can catch you in a lie. Like I just can't, I have no tolerance for that. And that's just, and if you're my friend, you should know that. Don't, oh, we're buddies. I've had friends steal money from us, friends who are outside vendors who are submitting false invoices and things, like super painful. And then they go and say bad stuff about us. Oh, they're terrible. I mean, the pain that goes with that. Again, I'll show you those scars are over here on the side of my neck. But you get through it. And but what my wife has suggested, I can tell you as a business person, hire slow, fire fast. If you get the sense, I mean, there's never been a situation where we thought we should give this person a second chance that's ended well in our organization. Not one time of the hundreds of people who've been through our company have we ever said, oh, they probably just had, let's give them another chance. It always ends badly, and they usually burn you on the way out. So I just, I don't want to sound like I'm a total weenie, but you got to watch for it to get to that situation first. Like here's nothing for lawyers. We're bad at this. We're bad at giving feedback. We just assume everybody knows and does their job. It's like kids. I love everybody. I love my lawyers. I'm a dad first. I have 3 girls. And one of the best parenting lessons I can give you is when you have a few rules and enforce them ruthlessly. And that's just the same thing with your employees. Have a few rules, enforce them ruthlessly. So customer service comes first. And if you see somebody who's yelling at a client, they get one chance. And if they mess it up after that, you're done. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have yelled at that client. I don't care what you're going through. you need to give best service to that client because they're in pain. So, you encourage them, you discipline them, you give them a chance, but then they're gone if they don't value that client service. And I know I sound like I'm harsh, but this is what you got to be at 200 people. And it's going to get even tighter. You have less margins of error the bigger you get. And so, know what you stand for, know your core values, enforce those core values, do it with love. You may have another place that's better for you. If you're not happy here, I say this to my people all the time. If you're not happy here, please, I'll write you a letter of recommendation to go somewhere else if you're not happy here. And we're very proud. We are always in the top 5 best places to work in South Florida. And we were #1 last year. Our employees vote us very, very high. We've got a very, very high employee satisfaction surveys. They're always, grading us high. We always want to find out what we can do better. But that accountability is something that's necessary. And we as lawyers, we just assume people are as accountable as we are. And they're not. And it's not their fault. But you've got to train people to be accountable. And you've got to just have a few rules and enforce them ruthlessly. And it will help you make those decisions going forward.
Well, and going back to the quote that you said, which is, hire hard, fire fast.
Hire slow, fire fast.
Hire slow, fire fast. It actually is in line with one of my favorite quotes, which is hire hard, manage easy. And so at that forefront, you need to take the time to make sure that this person shares those values, that they share that dedication to customer service, that they value honesty and understand that it is a one strike policy and they're out. So by making sure that you're vetting employees as they come in the door to make sure they match your values, which are not changing, and that they match your corporate culture, it's going to be so much more streamlined down the road as you build this cohesive team that is focused on the same goals and that is founded on the same set of values. And so we talked a little bit about what success looks like and what people look like. So let's talk about the systems, because we've touched on that a little bit, that it's important to have systems in place as you continue to grow. What kind of systems and processes are you talking about that are crucial as you scaffold your law firm for growth?
Well, you got to come to PILMMA to hear the answer to that question. But I can give you a general overview, and I'll let my wife handle that first, and then I'll kind of spin off on that.
Well, I guess I can talk about the marketing. Data in marketing is crucial. Having a system, we have, for example, a dashboard daily that we can see where every client is coming from, whether it's traditional marketing or digital marketing, and tracking that daily as a dashboard to know where they're coming from and to pivot for the next month if you feel the numbers are trending down in one specific area. I feel like a lot of people they talk about a marketing 360 and having billboards and radio and buses, but they're not really tracking. And then it starts going down, and 3 months later or 6 months later, they realize the number of cases are going down into the firm, and that's when they become reactive and freak out. For us, tracking that data and those numbers on a daily basis, even though it may seem like a lot, it helps us pivot fast whenever we see one coming down. Instead of like just losing the market share. That's another thing we track, like how many car accidents are in our area, what percentage of those car accidents do we get? Are we growing in that percentage? Are we growing in market share? So these are numbers that are super important, especially in marketing, because we tend to be like creative and like we tend to like go with like a new idea rather than keeping the data on the everyday. That happened to us in some of those years where we're like, let's try this thing, let's try this new thing, and then we didn't see the growth. But when we realize this is our basics, let's go back to our basics, let's go back to what we know, we realized that it really picked up. So I do feel that making a process and a data where you can track daily marketing is super important.
Yeah, and to echo that, back in the olden days, this was, I guess, 12, 13 years ago, we had one guy who wanted to be our marketing rep or ad rep, and he's like, well, it's impossible to track where cases are coming from. And I'm still triggered. This is 12 years later. I'm still triggered by this. I'm like, if you can't track it, I'm not going to do it. And I will tell you that ad reps will tell you can't track. And it's not true. You can get subjective and objective tracking. Objective is very easy for online. Subjective is, there are patterns you can still look for with subjective, which means, you ask the client where they came from. There's still data there. And you track that. And if anybody says you can't track it, they just lack accountability. And mostly vendors will lack accountability. And if you ever want me to call your vendor for you and tell you how they're lacking accountability, I'll be doing it, because I've had these conversations with vendors before. Now, that said, talking about the other systems and processes, when you're talking up to 5 employees, you're looking at, having an executive assistant who can help manage your time. You're looking at maybe your first technician, either paralegal. You need a bookkeeper. That's the first like core that you're going to need to have in place as you grow. And you need to have at least instructions for them. This is where you begin. You do little checklists. Those checklists become your processes and procedures. And then as you grow, you're up to 15 people. Well, you're still going to be managing that 6 to 15 employees. You're still going to be managing that day to day. You can manage 15 people with you at the hub and spoke method. And, you'll be there. You'll be hiring maybe a manager then to transition to the next size. You'll have a controller. You'll have a full-time marketing person maybe, and then other technicians will fill that in, receptionists and other folks like that. And you become a player coach where you're still on the field playing and doing some stuff, but then you become the coach. And then above that, you become the coach and you manage the managers at the next step above 15 employees. And that's usually for $3 to $4 million in revenue. You'll go past that. What's my point about this? Is your systems and processes begin an evolution. You start off with some general written instructions and basically checklists. And then that evolves as each department begins to take shape. That evolves into more detailed checklists and then standard operating procedures and written sets of instructions. Piece of advice to young lawyers. Look, if you start your firm, you're not going to have a lot of clients if you're just starting out. Do this now, because it is hard to do. It's like changing an engine at 30,000 feet if you're trying to do this when you're already at altitude. You want to start building your systems and processes as early as possible, even if it's just checklists, because you can turn a checklist into a standard operating procedure. And then, in case management, of course, is very important. Invest in case management software. All have good and bad, but figure out where you want to go. That's why I say success. You want to be a litigation firm. There's a difference to case management software I would recommend if you're a purely litigation firm, a trial firm, as a larger volume marketing kind of, advertising firm like we are. There's different software I recommend for that. So those things, when you define what your success is, you need to do that early, because that will help make some of these decisions. But start early with your systems and processes. Don't be too inflexible with it. Like, you don't want to have systems and processes fully developed when you have 3 employees, because it's hard to manage that way. But you can have a checklist, and then that will evolve when you start doing more quality control later on. I hope I'm not being too esoteric with this or too academic. It's the natural flow of business that you evolve your systems and processes and have more and more as you get bigger and bigger and bigger. You do want to empower your people. You don't want to lose flexibility, but at the same time, you want to start building these as soon as you can, because it will be a lot of work later on to do it. We just started in New York, and we had to build out a whole matter plan with SOPs for New York. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And everybody then has an opinion about how they want to do it. If you have it when they come in, you hire to that, and it's already in place, you don't have an argument. But if you're trying to put in an SOP after you've had people doing it a different way, you're going to get a fight. So you want to make sure that you get as much agreement early on as possible, and then just hire people into that system.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a lot easier to turn the ship while, it's still small, as opposed to trying to make a giant adjustment to a giant ship to change course. So absolutely putting in those systems, processes, SOPs that are appropriate for the right phase of development that your law firm is in, and then scaling both at the same time makes all the sense in the world. And so let's say that you've defined your success, your growth is successful, your scaffolding successful, you bring in dozens of new clients every month. What are some of the missteps and pitfalls to avoid as some law firms might grow too quickly?
That is a whole other podcast. All of those mistakes. What would you say I mean, we already said one of the big ones, which was, not firing people fast enough. That's a big pain. Like, we both have the scars from that one. What else would you say?
Hiring too fast without having a proper training system, because then everybody's starting at the same time, and everybody comes up with their own way to do the task, instead of having a formal training where everything is standardized. So then that's where you see like a lot of like lack of results. There's no KPIs in places. Everybody's just kind of doing their own way. So there's no system. So then you start getting silos and mini businesses within your firm. And we've seen that a lot. So sometimes we do need to really overhire, but we pay attention and make sure that we revamp our training processes at this point before we hire that many people at the same time. It does take, 2, 3 months before those employees can become part of your culture. Another thing is like tech stuff, like things starts crashing after 50 to 75 employees. Like our network would crash, our phone system would crash. So there was one day that we were like out of power completely for one day, and it was affecting, our laptops, it was affecting our phone system. So make sure as you're scaling to 50 to 75 employees, you're looking at your tech, you're looking to upgrade your network, memory, software, especially if you have VAs, for example. There could
Offshore assistance, yes.
offshore, you could have lag time, you could have call drops. There was one time that we thought we were not getting a lot of clients or a lot of people were calling, but it was a lot of call drops and our call rail was failing, our phone system was failing because of the growth.
Oh yeah, one suggestion, call your 800 number every morning. I remember one time early on, we didn't get any calls for like 4 days. And I was like, that can't be right. And so I called the 800 number and it went boo doo doo. And I'm
Oh
like,
no.
yeah, call your 800 number every morning. And now we have
Yes.
to do that. Call your 800 number every morning. I know it sounds crazy, and it just happens. And those things I think this happen. The other thing I will say, I'm going to reemphasize this point. I said it before. Give immediate feedback. I'm going to say it again. Give immediate feedback. One more time. Give immediate feedback. Lawyers, we are famous for overlooking stuff. Here's the pattern with lawyers. It's a pattern with a lot of leaders. You overlook something that you do not like. You think is going to get better. It never gets better. You don't give feedback. They do it again. They do it again. They do it again. And by the seventh time, you yell at them and fire them. That's your mistake, not theirs. You allowed it. And why are you firing me? Because you did this stupid thing 7 times. I didn't know it was wrong, and they really didn't know it was wrong because you didn't give them immediate feedback. Give immediate feedback. It's painful in the moment, but it will save you time. And you can lose a really good person because you did not give good feedback. If you ever hear yourself saying, oh, they'll figure it out and eventually get in line, absolutely not. It will never happen. I've never had somebody who figured it out and got in line and said, hey, the way you had suggested that I was choosing not to do is a better way. Now I'm going to choose to stop doing it the way I want to and do it your way. No, you need to say, do it my way. And do it in a very gentle way the first time. But if you wait till the 7th time, you're going to be yelling. And then they're going to be like, why are you so upset about this? So learn to manage people. And I'm talking to myself too, by the way. I'm not saying this just
These are all mistakes.
These are mistakes I've made. Mistakes I've made, and it's painful, and it still triggers me 10 years later that I made these mistakes. But if you learn to do that, my resolution 3 years ago was give immediate feedback in the moment, right there. That's not right. Please don't do that. And it's made a big difference. It really, really has.
Absolutely, because somebody is not going to know that they need to change something unless they're told that they need to change it. They did it that way because they thought that that was the right way to do it. Nobody is going through life going, I'm going to see if I can do this the wrong way. And if anybody catches, no, they think that they're doing it the best of their ability. If you don't give them the feedback, then they'll never know. You're absolutely right. So I am so excited about PILMMA. We're just a few days away. I can't wait to get back out to Denver. But what are you most looking forward to about the PILMMA conference?
I'm looking to connect with other business people, other lawyers. I think at some point you have to choose between being a trial lawyer and managing the business side. And there's fewer of us who manage the everyday or do the marketing. So I always love learning, getting ideas from other companies. Actually, when we go into the master groups, we make a list and we divide it by quarter and we implement all those things. So every time I go there, out there, I talk to all the business owners. I get a bunch of ideas and we grow as a result of that. So I'm looking forward to connecting with business owners. I'm looking forward to connecting with people so I can learn and bring it back into my business.
Yeah, me too. To say, at our level, the air gets thinner the higher up the mountain you go. And, we're in a place where there's not a lot of law firms that are like ours. And we're always happy to give and try and help people climb the mountain too. But the truth is people who can impact us. Mostly it's guys who are our size, and women too. A lot of women are our size. So Jan Dill's example, a great female lawyer who's a great mentor to my wife and has been a great example for us. And they're in the 8-figure group. So we get to see those people and give them a hug and catch up with them and see what they're doing. That's the best part about PILMMA, I think, is the like-minded individuals who become our friends. We're in different markets, we're all over the country, but we all have our interestingly very similar issues and catching up and reconnecting. And then most importantly, I think to me, part of my one of my core values is giving back, service to the community, and I want to be able to give back to younger or maybe smaller law firms and help them avoid some of the painful mistakes that we have made. So the ability to provide this, give this presentation, hopefully get on the radar of some people and maybe help them avoid some of the painful mistakes that we have. They'll make other mistakes. We're all making painful mistakes all the time, but to be able to help some people so they can overcome whatever may be limiting them in their lives right now, that will be helpful. And it makes me feel like my life has a meaning beyond just serving my clients, which is what we do now.
Well, thank you both so much for joining me on the show today. This is going to be a great presentation at PILMMA, and I can't wait to listen to it, get some more information, and meet you guys in person.
Awesome.
Thank you for the invitation.